So I tried something different with my makeup and I feel like it looks like I have a black eye now. The lesson is don't do anything new on filming day. Is fear holding you back from getting what you want? Probably yes. Even if you're not feeling afraid right now, fear is one of the biggest blocks we have to creating our dream life. So if you are serious about making any kind of big change in your world, it is so important for you to understand how your brain works in regards to fear. So today I have created this workshop just for you, which is all about understanding fear so that you can understand how your brain works and use some of these fear tactics to get you on the other side of fear and going for your dreams. So this is information we all need, and I cannot wait to share this stuff with you, so keep watching. What's up, conscious creator? Welcome to my channel. My name is Jen. I am a subconscious manifestation coach, and I'd love to welcome you here today. Whether this is your first time or your zillionth time, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it that you are spending time in your busy week hanging out here with me. If you don't know what this channel is all about, I create a brand new training video for you every week, all about the art of living your best life through my favorite tools, which are mindset and manifestation. So basically, I'm teaching you how to expand your consciousness by learning how to undo some of the mind junk that comes along with being a human. So if you are interested in manifesting your dream life and in up-leveling your mindset, then you're going to want to go ahead and join me for this journey and hit that subscribe button. So if this is not your first rodeo here, if this is not the first Align Live video you have watched, you have probably heard me talk about fear in most of my other videos, but I haven't done a workshop like this where I'm really going to get into it, talk about fear, talk about why we experience fear, how our brain works in regards to fear, and give you some tactics for getting over fear. So again, I always like to think about what kind of things I would love to teach the world, what kind of things I would love to put in the school curriculum so that all of us humans would have access to them. And learning how to think about fear and how to deal with your fear would definitely be on my list. And that is because we are fear-based machines, and fear is something that we all have to learn how to deal with. So the thing is, I want you to think back to the times in your life when you felt fear, and what did you do with that experience? So for most of us, when we experience fear, we do exactly what our brain wants us to do, and we stop going forward, or we try to mitigate the circumstances somehow, usually by not doing what we set out to do. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you right now that that is not going to be the tactic that is going to create the results that you want in your life. That is just your brain scaring you. And basically, we are letting our fear-based ego brain win the tug of war. So my intention with this video today is to help you understand why that fear seems so big, why that seems so overwhelming, and to give you some coping tools so that you won't get stuck in this fear-based trap when it inevitably comes up again. Because yes, fear is a part of everybody's life. Every single person experiences fear. And personally, me, when I was younger, I did not know what to do with fear. I basically avoided fear, which is exactly what our brains want us to do. But learning how to think about fear differently has given me different results. It has increased my capacity to create the things that I want. And like I said, that is why I want to share this information with you today. So first off, why do we need to think about fear? I thought this was a channel about manifestation and magic and mindset. Well, the thing is, like I said, we all experience fear. Fear is a normal part of being human, but it is also part of us that blocks what we want. So no matter how big and delicious and juicy your goals for your future might be, the truth is that they are brand new experiences, and our brain interprets everything that is brand new and unknown as a potentially dangerous experience. So what your brain is going to do is that anytime you are trying to make a change in your life, your brain is going to try to prevent you from doing that. And I'm going to go into the mechanics of this more in just a moment. But what I want you to know, first off, before we get into everything, is that fear is going to show up. Fear is always going to show up whenever you try anything new. So if you are trying to create a better financial situation, if you are trying to increase your business, if you are trying to find that next level relationship, you are going to experience fear. And so it is super important, like I said, for us to understand this fear instead of letting this fear rule over us. So I believe just knowing that alone can go so far, because most of us have been programmed to think that if we experience fear, something has gone wrong and that we need to move away from the fear as fast as possible. But that's not really the case. And actually, in reality, moving towards the thing that you are afraid of will often create more of the results that you actually want. However, just knowing that alone might not be enough to get you on the other side of fear, so I'm still going to get into the rest of this training today. But I just really want you to know this. Fear is an everyday fact of reality. Fear is a normal part of being human. So we need to understand how to deal with our own fear, because it will come up. It is going to come up over and over and over again. So the better we become at dealing with our fear, the better we are going to be able to move through many new situations in our world. Basically, this is a life skill that you need, whether you are a muggle trying to work your way up through the corporate world and do life like the quote unquote normal way, or whether you're in the manifesting world and are trying to use your magic to create big, shiny new results. Fear is a factor that we all need to understand. And that leads me to the second point that I want to make today. The fact is, your brain is hardwired to experience fear. Our fear-based brain is one of the reasons that we have survived so well as a species. So back in the day when we were all hunters and gatherers, when the people that had a developed sense of fear were the people who survived in the wilderness, in the jungle, wherever. They were the ones that avoided dying and lived long enough to pass their genes on to the next generation. So that happened over and over and over again. So basically, we are the descendants of people that had a very well-developed fear mechanism, because fear was essential to human survival when we were living in that state on this earth. However, of course, now we live in the modern age, and you are pretty unlikely to meet with any sort of life and death experience in your day-to-day life. But our brain has not caught up to this fact yet. Our brain is still looking for the tiger in the woods. Our brain is still constantly scanning the world around us for any potential danger. And the thing is, like I said at the beginning, it regards any new experience or any unknown experience as a potential threat. So maybe you want to get this promotion at work, and maybe this promotion will lead you to a different department. Maybe part of your brain becomes afraid of that, even though you want it, because there are so many unknown factors. It doesn't know what that new department is like. It doesn't know really what you're being asked to do, and it might be secretly self-sabotaging your attempts to get that. So like I said, your brain is literally hardwired to feel fear. We are going to experience overblown sense of fear in all kinds of everyday situations. Just think about the number one fear that most North Americans have. It's actually of public speaking. It's not even of death. And the reason for that is because we think we're going to stand up on a stage and be judged and be ridiculed. And again, back in the primitive times, if we were shunned by our group, that actually was a threat to our very survival. So even something like public speaking is interpreted as a potential death threat by our brain, and that is why we are so afraid of it. So please know, it's not just you. You are not a scaredy cat. There's nothing wrong with you experiencing fear as you go through your life. This is just how humans are, and we can thank the primitive part of our brain for doing that. But this leads me into the next point. Our brain might be scanning for danger in our environment at all times. Our brain might be hardwired to look for potential threats to our quote-unquote safety all the time, but it is not necessarily resulting in you feeling physically afraid. So our brain has gotten really good over the years at being able to push our buttons, which means our fear mechanism is often disguised in something that doesn't look like fear at all. Basically, your brain knows exactly how to make you behave the way it thinks you should, which is staying the same, which is not trying anything new, which is sitting your butt on the sofa and watching the Kardashians and never going anywhere. This is where self-sabotage comes into play, because no matter how much you might want something, no matter how big and juicy and amazing your goal for your life might be, your brain is going to talk you out of it, and it's going to do that in some very sneaky little ways. So we have a bunch of voices in our brain that aren't really us. They're actually just parts of our ego that sound certain ways, and they're really good at creating limitations for us, which again work to keep us staying the same, work to keep us from not going after something, by not trying something new, or by self-sabotaging and just barely missing a deadline or something like that. So I'm not going to get into every single one of these voices today, but I've come to know that there are 5 of them. And the one that I talk about on this channel quite a bit is the inner mean guy or the inner mean girl. So we all have this voice in our head, the one that is super critical, the one that is telling you you are, I don't know, too old, too fat, too skinny, too young, too undereducated, too overeducated, too whatever it is. We all have a voice in our head that is incredibly mean to us, but what that voice is really doing, it is speaking up for that fear mechanism. So when your voice is telling you, well, you shouldn't try to do that, people are going to laugh at you, what are people going to think? That is really your fear mechanism talking to you, trying to keep you from taking action. So fear is really sneaky. Fear can show up in all kinds of ways, and if you don't understand, again, what's happening in your mind, it is going to be easy to just fall for the brain's trick. So it's super important to understand that the inner mean guy or the inner mean girl, that voice in your brain that is super critical, is not your friend, and they are not telling you the truth. That voice is trying to control you and trying to push your buttons, and of course, because it's been with you your whole entire life, it knows exactly what your worst weaknesses are, what the buttons it needs to press in order to make you behave a certain way. I go a lot more into these voices and the way they control us in my program, Unfuckwithable Confidence. So if you want to learn more about that, I invite you to come over and check that out. But for today, I'm just going to tell you that yes, there are voices in your head, and they're not going to sound like fear. They are going to sound like rational statements. They are going to sound like, you know, I'm just being your friend, I'm just trying to protect you kind of thoughts. But again, it's just fear. It is just your brain trying to keep you small. It is just your brain trying to keep you safe. But if you don't know that, and if you just let those voices run over you, your brain is going to win. So basically we have a tug of war between your conscious brain and what you want, your, the promotion, the relationship, whatever, and your subconscious brain and the ego part of your brain, which really doesn't want you to do anything new ever. And you get to choose which side you're going to go towards. But again, if you don't have this information, if you don't understand your mind, if you haven't learned any coping techniques to deal with fear, the ego brain is going to win every single time. So like I said at the beginning, if you are at all serious about creating some major change, wealth, relationships, body image, whatever it is, you need to understand the fear voice, because that is the only way that you can get beyond it. So fear keeps you small by talking to you in certain ways, by creating excuses, by criticizing you, by telling you things aren't possible. But fear can also stop you from creating progress in your life just by being busy and by doing what I call information gathering. So we have just had a crazy year of news, in case you haven't noticed. And there were a few times where I definitely got sucked up into the cycle myself. And even though I know this stuff, it is still kind of difficult sometimes to disengage and to really understand what our brain is doing. So recently it was just the US elections, and they did not announce the result for, I don't know, what was it, 5 days after the election? And during that time, I was obsessed with reading the news, reading the updates, figuring out what's going on, looking at all, all the information sources that I can. And what was really happening at that time is that my brain was in this fear state. And one of the things your brain does in a fear state is look for new information. Your brain is trying to solve a problem, and it is going to try to solve it by gathering more facts, by getting more information, because it wants to have this sense of security and this sense of control. And during that limbo time, I don't think anyone had that sense of control. We were all waiting for the result, and we were all looking for the magic answer that could make us feel better. The thing is, most of the time, like in a situation like that, you can check the news every 2 minutes, and it is going to keep giving you different answers. And that is going to make your brain freak out even more, because there's even more things to worry about. And none of it was really going to solve the problem. And of course, the problem is that we were in a state of limbo. There was no answer yet, and we just need to chill out and calm down and wait for the answers to come in. So the way this could be harmful in the real world is that your brain thinks that looking for information, researching, looking stuff up, planning stuff, that it thinks that that is a viable way to deal with fear. But what's really happening is that you are just using fear to procrastinate, and again, to self-sabotage and to prevent you from actually doing what you want. Because you don't actually get what you want from reading about it. You don't actually get what you want just from thinking about it, visualizing it, planning it. You actually have to go out there at some point in time and start to make things happen. So again, fear can get in our way in a bunch of different ways that feel like we're being useful, that feel like we're just being rational, that feel like we're just doing the right thing. And again, if you don't understand that this is just fear and your brain doing what your brain wants to do, these things are going to trip you up and again, self-sabotage you from getting the results that you want. Okay, so now we understand why you need to think about fear. We understand that our brain functions with fear a lot. And we understand some of the ways in which fear is tripping you up and making you self-sabotage your own success. So the next step is to give you some fear-busting tactics that are really going to help you to get to the other side of fear and get back to the business of creating the amazing life that you really want. Okay, fear-busting tip number 1 is to get to the actual root of the problem. So like I pointed out in this training, our brain likes to disguise fear in different ways. So anytime you notice any voice in your head that is getting in the way of you doing what you actually need to do in order to create the result you want, you need to start to get curious about what is underneath that voice. So again, one of the most popular voices we have in our brain is the inner mean guy or the inner mean girl. So when this super critical inner voice comes out and is telling you you're too stupid or too lazy to have what you want, it is time to get curious about what is really going on underneath that voice. Because again, it isn't the voice being real with you. This is actually not true, and it is not actually you. So what is this voice saying? Why does this voice want you to stop? What part of your brain is afraid of what's happening? Fear can be really great at controlling us because we don't even know what is happening. So like I said already, fear is a huge part of our brain, but that doesn't mean that we're trembling in fear all of the time. Fear is really tricky, and fear shows up in all kinds of sneaky little ways. But if you don't examine the things that are happening in your mind, that fear is going to rule over you. I always say with any work that comes to the subconscious mind that your subconscious mind is just going to keep running the show unless you bring some consciousness to the problem. And when you can identify what the fears really are, that is going to help give you the fuel to get beyond what the critical voice in your brain is saying or what your urge to do a bunch of research is saying. So that's my tip number 1. Just get curious and open and figure out what you are really afraid of and why you are stopping your action. Tip number 2, don't catastrophize. So again, our brain is a fear-seeking machine. It is looking for fear in all kinds of different things. But that means sometimes you can get stuck and move from fear into a straight up state of anxiety. So if you are thinking about a big goal, for example, in your career, your brain might be tempted to start to think of not only the things that you can do right now to further your career, but it might start to solve problems that are way off in the future, trying to solve them right now. So this is called catastrophizing. Basically, you are trying to think of every possible worst case scenario, and your brain might think that that's a really great idea. It might make you feel like you are just being prepared, but the truth is, we actually won't know what problems we are going to have to solve until we get out there and do the thing. We can pretend that researching and thinking about things and worrying about things is useful, but it actually isn't. The real world is always completely different from the world in our mind. And so the example I like to give for this is, if I gave you a book about learning how to drive a car, would you actually know how to drive a car? So of course the answer is no, because you've never actually done it. And the same thing applies to you getting that promotion. The same thing applies to you working out at this new gym. The same thing applies to you getting into this new relationship. You won't actually be able to solve all the problems and to understand all the things you need to deal with until you actually get there. So you can spend a lot of time right now spinning out, trying to imagine things, but all that worry and all that chaos and all that confusion isn't actually going to help you in the real world, and it is going to prevent you from making progress to creating what you want. So if you feel yourself getting sucked up into the worry spiral, it is time to start to focus on the things you can control, which are things in your immediate time, and not the things that are going to happen next month, next year, 6 years from now, whatever you're thinking about. Solve the problem that you can and come back to the present moment as often as possible and keep moving forward from there. And that brings me to the next point, which I just sort of touched on. And this is just learning how to trust yourself. So again, if you were going to learn how to drive a car and you read a book about driving a car, you wouldn't really know how to drive a car. But you're not going to let yourself worry about, well, I don't know how to drive it yet, so I'm not going to start. So most of us get in a car when we don't know how to drive, and we're with a teacher and we figure it out. We learn how to do it. We have to go through the potentially rocky process of figuring it out. And the same thing applies again to everything in your life. We like to think that if we plan enough, if we worry enough, we can eliminate all the bumps in the road and we can figure out everything ahead of time, and life will be, just joy and happiness and no negative emotions. But that does not work. Life is full of little bumps, little unexpected moments. And the thing is, you have lived your entire life up until this point with those little bumps and those unexpected moments. And you have figured it out, because guess what? You are a problem-solving machine. We are all problem-solving machines. When you run out of problems is really the day that you die. There is always something happening in your world that you are going to have to figure out. And that is okay. Life isn't about being problem-free. It is about learning how to trust ourselves to keep going and to keep figuring it out. So again, your fear-based brain might try to trick you into thinking that you can avoid any problems, or that any problems mean something has gone wrong, but that is actually not true. So if you can learn how to trust yourself, then you can stop worrying about that, because you are going to encounter these things and you can figure them out when you get there. You do not need to spend time, waste time sitting around and thinking about them in advance, because you're never really going to know what you're going to need to solve until you actually get there. Okay, my fourth and final fear-busting tip for you today is to challenge yourself to take the action anyway. So again, when it comes to fear, our natural instinct is to think that when we feel fear, that something has gone wrong. In fact, that is what our brain wants us to think. But again, in modern life, in modern reality, that doesn't mean anything. Anytime you experience a new situation, that does not mean that there is something that has gone wrong, no matter what your brain has to say. This is especially important for you goal getters. This is especially important for us conscious creators. We need to understand this, because if you are trying to avoid the fear, you're never going to get over the hump that leads you where you want to go. So my way of challenging you to deal with this is learning how to see the fear, acknowledge the fear, and to do what you need to do anyway. Because we think fear has to rule over us. We think that fear means stop, But fear does not actually mean stop. Fear can just be something that says, hey, I'm afraid, I don't know what's happening. And you can keep going because you are the conscious creator. You get to decide on what you do. You get to decide on how to create your life. And we all need to act. We all need to do something new in order to create new results. Again, if you let the fear part of your brain win, you are not going to create anything new in your life. You are going to sit around, keep thinking about it, and keep not creating new results. Like I always say in these videos, the life you're living now is the result of the way you used to think and the way you used to act, your previous beliefs and your previous actions. If you want new results, like a lot of money, great relationship, whatever, you need to create new beliefs and new actions. Again, I always say this, but if you really want something and you're just sitting around at home, doing nothing, changing nothing, believing the same old things, well, don't be surprised if nothing happens. You're not changing your energy, you're not changing your beliefs, you're not changing your action. So probably nothing will happen for you. But if you can start to change your life on every single level, that is when you can start to create the results that you really want and to become magnetic to your dreams, which I know is why you're really here, right? The short of it is your feelings do not matter nearly as much as your beliefs and your actions. I'm gonna say it again. Your feelings do not matter nearly as much as your beliefs and your actions. Your feelings are floating around, they're changing, and it's also good to remember that no matter how afraid you might be, fear is a fleeting feeling like everything else. You can be really afraid right now, but in 5 minutes, that fear could be over with. We need to learn how to trust ourselves to sit with these emotions because we have experienced them before. We will experience them again. And if we keep running from them, we are going to let those things rule over us. But I want you to create your life consciously, and you need to become consciously aware of these processes if you want that to happen. But I think this video gave you a brilliant starting point. I think that this helps to highlight exactly why we all need this information, and I hopefully have given you some great tips for you to start managing your own mind when it comes to fear so that you can start to change your results and start to create the life of your dreams. So that's it for today's training. Thank you so much for being here today. I, again, super appreciate you spending time in your busy week hanging out here with me. I really hope these tips today help to elevate your mindset and really go a long way to helping you create the life of your dreams. If you like this video, go ahead, give it a like. If you want to learn more from me, come on over and check out my free manifestation planner. It's on the site. I will leave a link for that in the description box below. And other than that, I'll be back here in next week's training. So until then, happy manifesting. I love you so much. You've got this, you guys. So go out there, kick some butt, and I will see you very soon.